Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Los Angeles, California, United States of America. April 3rd, 2021. I've started a new series of daily talks through the month of April based upon my newly released book as of yesterday called Extinction, X-rated. It's an autofictional, uber, super dark satire. Got to really look into the word satire before you buy it. Satire on good and evil, right and wrong, tyranny and freedom, all the dualities of, I know perhaps you share what I feel. Sometimes it is just overwhelming to feel trapped into this demonic tapestry that the Buddhist called samsara. Trapped, as it were, into this fabric of mental and emotional, psychological and cosmological, and who knows what else. The diabolical forces to be forced into this prison camp of samsara. Heaven and hell, right and wrong, good and bad, so acutely brought into hyperpixelation today in the country of Myanmar and Burma. I mean, I could go so many places. The normalization, allow me just to drift and to interrelate and extemporaneously hang. Thank you for tuning in. Share this video if you're so moved. The madness in Myanmar today, and equally this normalization, if you will. I don't know if there's a word that I have for the ineptitude, the catastrophic failure of the world community. I mean, it's outrageous what the military terrorist satanic cult group in Burma is doing under the devilish orders of Ming Online. And you could argue what's new. There's Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, war after war, genocide after genocide, the persecution of the Native American Indians and the denigration of the blacks and the slavery, and this deep inequality, this deep treachery in being human, being born onto this prison camp called planet Earth, in this tapestry of infinity called, in the Buddhist tradition, samsara, the Christian tradition of heaven and hell. This beingness, this cosmological being, this quantum field of horror, for God's sake. And I wrote a book about what it feels like today at this stage of my life to be embedded in this madness and to not give up. I don't even know what giving up would mean if I decided to give up. You know, euthanasia, mindful euthanasia has been on my mind for years, to be quite frank with you. The book is deeply embedded in that truth. It's not suicide. That's just a boring phrase. But, you know, sometimes you get to that place, and I can so empathize with the boys and girls in Burma and all over the world today. You just don't care anymore about wanting to participate in cosmological genocide, rape, madness, ecocide. Who, you know, the 6th mass extinction, 5 before us. I was reading Michio Kaku's book the other day, The Future of Humanity. The simultaneity of infinite extinctions going on right now, he writes about in that book. I brought that forth in my own book, Extinction, X-rated. I mean, we're in this nightmarish, ghoulish tapestry called samsara, an ocean of waves that, you know, I so glibly use, frankly, the word genocide. I glibly. I just can't even embrace the meaning of the word. I just wish at times there were more cinematic, graphic, psychedelicized, infused mediums to awaken these more latent forms of conscience and dignity and compassion and loving kindness that are innate in the human psyche. I would do anything to obliterate the tyranny and the satanic necessity of Ming Online right now, for example. The normalization of keeping our hands off of other cultures and peoples that are being raped and murdered. That is so mind-bogglingly frightening to me, to think that there is no one there who was willing to help. ASEAN, truly the mockery of diplomacy, it's just a shattering insanity to see the United Nations, a shattering insanity to see the EU in America and Canada and Australia and ASEAN. It's a shattering insanity to see 193 nations in the United Nations that claim to have, deep roots in decency and civilization to allow, to support, to collude with the ongoing deep assassination of a culture of democracy in Myanmar. I mean, it is so front and center, and it's so intimate to the theology of the book I just wrote called Extinction X-Rated. I just don't know where you find, at times, the strength to carry on. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's not a depressive state of mind. It's worse than that. It's deeper than that. It's more problematic than that. And so today I'd like to just, move through that terrain, that jagged, maddening terrain of love in the time of madness, hope in the time of tyranny. How do we keep alive the radiance of possibility against every odd? And so I would like to just share my encounters and just riff a bit, if you will, on this day of the entombment of Christ, the abandonment of Jesus with his disciples and apostles, except for the women. The women stayed with the man was with the woman, and the apostles ran for comfort. These epic expressions of betrayal and alignment. And then this maddening, this maddening cult of the self that prioritizes personal interest, the enslavement to mortgages, jobs, the cult of family versus community, nation, principle, values, religion, God, truth, Dhamma. And those rare individuals that make radical sacrifices, if you will, for the greater good. That kind of biblical, Dhammic, satanic and God-like duality, those things really, at this moment in time, play deeply into my soul. The propaganda of manipulation and just this deathly mockery of compassion and caring. It's almost everything seems to be rooted in the treachery of the capitalistic embedded make money, sustain money, make money through mindfulness, make money through trauma, make money through healing, make money through yoga, make money. You could just go on and on about the mockery of money, selling Jesus' clothing, there bleeding with the nail in the wrist and the ankle. I mean, it would be so easy to pretend and to play in the theater of being on that cross, being that boy and girl holding the head of your daughter and your son with a bullet hole made in China right through her head. Buses being stopped in the suburbs of Rangoon, passengers being beaten, terrorized, kicked, shamed, and killed in the name of madness. The human psyche gone mad. The talk today in Burma of a Syria-like, Libya-like, failed nation. Massive, convulsive civil war. These words don't even come close to the sound of a rocket, to the MiG jets that are bombing the sacred land of the Karen state on the border of Thailand, sending thousands of children and elderly into the horror of not camps or refuge, into forests. Imagine hanging out and sleeping in a dark forest without anything, with ants and snakes and lizards and bats. Unthinkable. And yet, on this planet, here we sit in comfort while others writhe in madness and horror. And the world community is kind of like, oh wow, this is like a live version of Game of Thrones. Man, let's just sit back, honey, and have some wine, and let's kind of psychologically masturbate to the torture, hon. Game of Thrones in Burma today. And the players are all being propped up by profit and guns and arms and plastics and manufacturing, called the global economy of madness. I'll tell you, when I keep reading and hearing about the statistics of teenagers and the suicides on the rise, domestic violence on the rise, drug addiction on the rise, going through the roof on the rise, the madness on the streets on the rise, homelessness on the rise, and the madness of even the madness, I so get it. I am not one going to twist this story into easy hope or love. If I were to be really frank, mindfulness has failed us. Dharma has failed us. Religion has failed us. Our pastors and teachers have failed us. The planet is a failed planet. We're descending deeper and deeper into the cosmological grave of evil. It seems as if we vote in demonic figures to further denigrate our societies in the name of human rights and freedom and democracy. The perversity of the misinformation and the lies and the propaganda. I hear the distortion vehicles out of Myanmar and Burma in this mad satanic cult run by Ming Online. No matter what he does and the men around him that they do, they basically lie, distort, and tell the world and themselves and the people that it's for your benefit that we just killed your daughter. That's Satan. That's evil. The normalization of global propaganda and the complicity with that madness called Welcome to Planet Earth 2021 here on Easter weekend. They put Jesus up on the cross. Tomorrow there's some form of resurrection, the symbolism of that. Love in the time of madness. How easy it is to lose hope. I can't imagine sitting on that bus and having it stopped and having the satanic cult military terrorists come in and put a Chinese-made weapon in your face and blow your head off and beat you to death in front of your husband and your wife and your child. Possessed. You so understand how the wealthy and the elite, the privileged, want to run to the bunkers of their protection, that live in the distortions of vaccines and oligarchical hierarchy, transhumanistic control of the evil. Can't imagine what it's going to be 2050, 2070 as they're on Earth, what it's going to be like on Earth. Blade Runner times 1,000. Mad Max really gone mad. Are we in the absolute decay of civilization? Seems so. Are we in the sixth mass extinction? All scientists and environmental pundits tell us that we are. Is it repairable? Many say no. David Suzuki says we're headed for a brick wall of self-annihilation, arguing in the car of where to sit, what's on the radio. These are dire images, and we're seeing the collapse. It's not just like something breaking, it's like murder, rape, the normalization of madness, love in the time of madness. Love, love. I was thinking years back, I was in Hawaii with my beloved friend, Catherine, and her daughter, Talita, on the ocean, home. And there was an emergency call that came across through helicopters flying over the island, stating that there has been a massive earthquake in South America and an enormously powerful tsunami is headed for the Hawaiian Islands. They said the earthquake was close to an 8.0, leaving us and the belief that was being told to us in the middle of the night by amplified men in helicopters, if you do not leave soon, you will die. The islands, coastal regions will be overrun with this massive wall of water. The massive wall of madness, the massive wall of genocide, the massive wall of ethnic cleansing, the massive wall of ongoing arms merchants, the massive wall of oil consumption, the massive wall of global consumerism, the massive wall that David Suzuki talks about of us humans, all 8 billion of us in a car, arguing over where we're going to sit, and we're headed straight to the massive wall that, in this particular analogy, the massive tsunami is coming at us. Escape, escape, escape. And that was the message. And I remember we all were up. We were on the coast. It was not vulnerable. It was a guaranteed death. Everything that was owned, although I was a guest in the home, everything that was owned would be lost. And here we were having to decide our fate, what to bring, what to leave behind, all within a couple of hours. My friend took all of her jewelry, her daughter took her most sacred stuffies, and I took my computer and my hard drive, and away we went. Her neighbor waited and waited and waited and filled up his pickup truck with every conceivable item that he could get into that truck, strapping it on, roping it in, piling it in, every little thing, barely making it out. And yet the tsunami did not engulf the islands as predicted. Kind of a false alarm, unlike in Burma today, where the madness is so real. The tsunami is increasing in power. Last year when I was in Indonesia, in Bali, you may remember, on the coast of Java, there was also a massive tsunami. But the ocean alarms and buoys somehow malfunctioned. And the images that we read and some film that we saw of how the tsunami built in power, and there was this wedding of several thousand people at this five-star hotel on the coast of Java, and you could see this wall of silent genocide, this madness of a tsunami coming, and it was silent. There was no alarms. And there was this very well-known rock band playing to several thousand participants at this wedding. And suddenly, the tsunami engulfed that entire gathering. And almost 90% of the people, if I'm not mistaken, were instantly killed and drowned. It's a horrible image. Isn't that genocide? Isn't that the onslaught of ethnic cleansing? Isn't that the assassin's bullet? Isn't that Myanmar? Isn't that the mass extinction? Isn't that here we are in the car, playing, dancing, arguing over the music and where to sit and what to wear and what to give back. And here we are in this existential blip of time. You know, I was reading somewhere where from a human perspective, this existential threat of extinction, impossible to get our heads around. Impossible to get our heads around what's going down in Myanmar. Impossible to get our heads around the ineptitude of the world community in response, the non-response to the murder, the assassination, and the ethnic cleansing of the people of Burma. And here we are, and impossible to get our heads around the fact that this extinction that we're in, from our perspective, from the brain's perspective, it's just like a slow motion event. What, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years? The word collapse. What does that really mean? What does it mean to adapt to the eco-grief of extinction? What does it mean to deal with the dysfunction, the lack of access to electricity and water? What does it mean to think that you can't drive? What does it mean to be without food when we want it? The pandemic has shown that to us. Are we in this? Is this what collapse looks like? And from an environmental point of view, from an ecological point of view, extinction is instantaneous. And this is where I was reading in Michio Kaku's book, and this is where I come back to in my own book, Extinction X-Rated. You're protesting on the streets of Myanmar, and you know there's a threat. They're killing protesters, and instantly you are now dead. There's a bullet through your head, and that's happening every day, throughout the day in Myanmar. And extinction is a bullet through the head of all life, humans and non-humans, and it's instantaneous like an assassin. And it's so radically existential to get our heads around that. I'm wondering, like, if I'm a rock musician, if I'm a hip-hop singer, if I'm a rap artist, if I'm a solo performer on the stage set of existence, like I met U Parlay, the great satirist in Burma, when he was released from prison after 6 years of hard labor pounding rocks because he satirized the Tan Shui regime in Burma. He came to Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's compound and performed, and he told the audience, I've been waiting for 6 years for this moment. And he said further, I was told by my translator, that I know that what I'm going to say will land me back in prison, but freedom is more important than fear. And for 90 minutes, he shared his most satirical, dark, comedic, gallows humor to satirize the dictatorship and the totalitarian consciousness of the men and the women in his own country of Burma and around the world. And sure enough, he was taken back to the Gulag and given 6 more years of hard labor because he dared stand up to the tsunami of totalitarianism and used his wit, his satire, his humor, his rad to obliterate and basically tell Satan, screw you. And I sometimes have tried to enact in my own heart, what would it mean if I had 90 minutes to speak to the great devil of existence, the genome of totalitarianism, manifested by the white face of a Hitler times a million, a billion, and Tan Shui, and all the various intersecting complexities that we face as individuals, both us and as non-humans on this infinitely finite planet that from an ecological point of view, the tsunami of extinction is instantaneous. As Michio Kaku said, right now, we are in a multiverse universe where there are innumerable extinctions going on simultaneously. Even in our discernible universe and galaxies where we know that there are billions of other Earth-like spheres that very likely inhabit life as we know it to some extent here on Earth, they are going extinct instantaneously as you and I speak and read and interrelate. We're in this existential craziness. And I wonder sometimes, why, how? The wisdom of mindful euthanasia and radical courage. What does it mean to love in the times of madness? What does it mean to be awake and live and love in the times of existential despair? Burma is in the convulsion of madness, and equally that convulsion of madness for me is the ineptitude, the insanity of the non-response of the world. And I'm a bit heartbroken. No, I'm completely devastated. No, I'm on the verge of radical existential depression. And there's a part of me that wants to just fight so hard and scream so loud. I wish I knew what to do, except that I wrote it in a book, Extinction X-Rated, an auto-fictional dark satire about good and evil. It's on Amazon worldwide, but don't get it if you're light at heart. Don't get it if you have never thought about committing suicide. Don't get it if you've never been addicted. It is not light reading. It was my cry. It was my parler. If I had 90 minutes on the stage set of existence before the great mass extinction, before the genocide, before the bullet in all of our heads, what would I say? I said it. I dared to say what I would never say, and I will live with the consequences because I refused to be canceled. I refused to participate in my own self-abuse. I refuse to participate in non-action. And that's where I want to close today. Love is a powerful word, especially in the absence of it. I remember being in the Corinne state, it just came to me, in 1990 in Menopause. I've been all throughout the state, Shan State. I traveled with members of the ABSDF, with the Corinne Army, the Shan Army. I had never seen such courage as the boys and girls out there, suffering from malaria and typhoid, deprivation and trauma, and equally high on the luminosity of democracy and action and freedom. Many of them took up weapons. Some of you may even be listening today. Many of you have reached out to me over the last 2 months. We're connected. We're brothers, we're sisters. I met monks out there that disrobed and took up armed resistance to the satanic cult in Naypyidaw, which was not even born at that point. But here it is again, 32 years later. I remember hearing gunshots and airplane grenades and jets. And one night, among many nights I was out there, and mind you, a lot of these boys and girls were eating rat, eating roaches, eating whatever they could to survive, to carry on the struggle for freedom. And I remember sitting around a campfire one evening, and I had a friend there. She was part of the executive committee for the ABSDF. Her name was Ma Thet Thet Luen. Maybe you know her. Ma Thet Thet Luen. She was from Taunji in the Shan State, spoke fluent English. We became very, very close friends. I remember asking her one night around the campfire, I said, Ma Thet Thet Luen, have you ever been in love? I don't know why I asked her that, but it felt very appropriate. Have you ever been in love? And she looked at me and regarded me quite evenly around that campfire. There were 7 or 8 other Burmese students around. We all kind of were deeply waiting for Ma Thet Thet Luen to share her answer. And she said, yes. Yes, I've been in love. Now, mind you, I'm paraphrasing. I've written about this, and I'm still in love. And she went on to explain over the course of the next hour what she meant by that. She said, I'm from Taunji, and as a university student there, my fiance and I, my family, we heard about the marches, we heard about the demonstrations in 1988 in Rangoon, and how the students led a popular uprising against dictatorship and totalitarianism, tyranny, oppression. They wanted freedom to dream, to relate. They marched, they cried, they shouted, they chanted. They were nonviolent, they were peaceful. In Ne Win's terrorist satanic cult, the dictator at times sent out his soldiers with orders to shoot. She said the same thing happened in various other cities around the country, and in my city of Taunji in Shan State, just like it's happening today all throughout the country. In Burma, students, young people, older people are all taking into the protest movement. They're all disobeying the satanic cult of Ming Online. They're all refusing to participate in the machinations of murder, assassination, and denigration. The mantra, far better to die than to live under the tyranny of terror. Wow. Love in the time of madness. They're going out onto the streets knowing they're going to die, and they're refusing to cower into the corner of their fear. Love in the time of terror. And she says, we felt so hopeful in Taunji for the first time in our lives that we could come out and feel that the future offered a dream of hope, of travel, of creativity, the freedom to use our mind and our thought and our art. She spoke on and on about the beauty of freedom over, beyond dictatorship and tyranny and the use of violence to coerce us to obey like animals. And so we marched like the students did in Rangoon. We took to the street arm in arm, she said. And the soldiers came out as they did in Rangoon, and they had also orders to shoot, just like Ming Online has given his satanic cult in Burma, the terrorist group Masak, the same orders: shoot, kill freedom, assassinate freedom. And they knelt down, she said, around that campfire at night. And we put our hands in front of our chest, as one does, as if showing respect to a Sangha member or to a parent or to an elder. We honor you as we honor the greatest people in our lives. And she said to me around that campfire, she said it to the world. She's saying it to us right now. Ma Thet Thet Luen speaks for all of Burma, all of freedom-loving people around the world. She said, we told those soldiers with those rifles pointed at our heads, we love you. We love you. You are our brothers.